Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome once again to the Behavioral Corner. You recognize me. I hang out on the corner for a living. My name is Steve Martirano. What we do here on the Behavioral Corner is we talk about behavioral health, which is an enormous topic. Simply, our behavioral health is made up of everything that affects us, the choices we make, the way we live our life, and how that all impacts our emotional, physical, and even spiritual health. So that's the corner. That's what we do. We are partnered with Retreat Behavioral Health, our great partners. You'll learn more about them straight ahead. Very frequently on the corner, what we do is bring in folks who have literally been there, done that, and we do that because it's important, very important, to emphasize that no matter how large the problem of substance abuse is, and it is large. No matter how sometimes it seems intractable, other times it leads many times to a loss of life. There are stories of recovery there, and there are millions of them. There are millions of people that are living in long-term sobriety after struggling with substance abuse. It's important to remind people of that. To that end, we welcome to the Behavioral Corner our guest for this episode, Gary Moore. Hi, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
You're one of those been there, done that guys. I'm very fond of saying, and I've said it again and again, that all stories of substance abuse and recovery are the same, except they're different. So we're grateful to have you join us with your different story. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? Where'd you grow up?
I'm 51. I currently live down on the eastern shore of Maryland. But growing up, I lived in northern Maryland, the Baltimore County area, up in the sticks. Mm-hmm. And I was born in '70, so I lived through the '70s and '80s with my parents were bikers, so I think it's probably not necessary to say that there was a lot of rowdiness, plenty of substances to check out and try when I was,
very
an adolescent, a teenager.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, we were more or less joking before we got on the air here today, and I said, well, your story is your story. If you were raised by missionaries in Africa, that's going to be a different kind of story. Well, this is a different kind of story. Raised by bikers. Were they part of like an outlaw motorcycle group, or just recreational bikers?
No, they were beyond recreational. It was definitely their lifestyle.
Right.
But they never really joined a gang. To tell that both of my parents are passed away, so this is not going to cause them any harm. But they, like I said, they partied all the time. But they also grew pot and sold that to kind of fuel their adventures. So to that extent, my dad was definitely associated with some of the gangs, but was never, that just wasn't his thing.
Yeah. Not a joiner. Good. Wow. So you know what? It shouldn't come as any surprise that you might have wound up abusing substances. Incidentally, I apologize for not mentioning at the outset that Gary, who has obviously a colorful story about how he wound up abusing substances, is about to celebrate 3 years of sobriety. So, and by the way, no mean feat, and congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
What we're going to leave here today with, I hope, is a sense people go, well, if that dude can get straight, maybe I got a shot. So anyway, how about siblings? Did you have brothers and sisters?
I did not. And we lived on a farm. So, I grew up relatively isolated. I mean, I had friends and that kind of thing, but Definitely spent a lot of time alone for sure.
You know what's interesting? When you talk to people who were raised in circumstances way more middle class and I guess typical than yours, which is exotic. Let's face it. Um, Even they will say very often, uh, "My parents drank not to excess, but they drank. That liquor was in the house. There would be adult parties all the time where adult beverages were served." And so a kind of normalcy surrounded alcohol for these people growing up. It didn't seem dangerous or exotic. And then they wound up having a problem. You got that story in spades. I mean, there must have been a time very early on when you just thought everybody grew pot, everybody got loaded, and everybody partied, right?
Pretty much, other than my grandparents lived on the same farm, but the houses were somewhat spread apart. So they were somewhat of mitigating influence on the direction in which I was headed. Um, that said, otherwise, my parents' life really revolved. They were hard workers. They went to work all the time. Of course, some of that was aided by chemicals, so to speak. But yeah, they their circle of friends. There was a lot of partying going on. So
Yeah, yeah. And it was never kept away from you. It was just part of your lifestyle, right?
it was, and especially when I was younger, before I was an adolescent, it terrified me that at some point my parents were going to end up, in jail. Um, 70s and 80s during the Reagan years in particular, when it was just say no, they were actually asking you to turn in anybody, including your parents. In the meantime, my parents would drive around with a vehicle that has a big pot leaf bumper sticker that says "End the Prohibition." So no, it was no secret,
Yeah.
both to
Well,
me or any of my friends and so forth.
so the anxiety level for a young kid must have been pretty high. I mean, they're your folks. You could recognize their lifestyle was a little different than other people's. You do you think do you think that anxiety contributed to your drifting into substance abuse?
Absolutely, it's unfortunately it's I realized it, somewhat early on when I was in my 20s, I guess. But I did nothing about it. I sort of thought, well, this is the way it is. You drink, you party. That's the lifestyle. It wasn't until recently, really, since my time at retreat in 2019, that I've had the ability to sort of clear-headedly look back and see what was going on, how it was affecting me as a kid. And like you said, it definitely caused a lot of anxiety because, not knowing whether mom and dad were going to come home at all. They had plenty of accidents. I rode with them when, either one of them was so drunk they'd run off the road and I'd have to yell that. So yeah, a little bit of anxiety
Yeah,
there.
a little. It wasn't Ozzie and Harriet. That's for
No.
sure.
And
Um,
I don't want to just simply disparage my parents. They love me very much. There's no question about it. That's just
sure.
the way they lived.
Yeah,
So
they had a yeah. There's no conflict there. I know it's confusing to people, but you certainly can have a loving relationship to your child and a kind of it seemed to me steadiness. You went to work and you did all that, and also have a dangerous lifestyle,
right.
a reckless and dangerous lifestyle. Can I ask how your parents passed away?
Uh, Substance abuse in both
Both?
cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom had an aneurysm. She and I had not been speaking for it was about a year or so, and then I got a call that was unconscious, had an aneurysm, was at Hopkins in Baltimore. So the last time I saw my mom, she was unconscious, and I hadn't talked to her in a year. So there's some pretty heavy guilt associated with that. My dad's story it had a tremendously positive outcome. Obviously, it's not easy losing a loved one, but what he did was pretty amazing. Like I said, they both partied all the time. Eventually, as they got older, the going to bars and that kind of thing, not as much. But my dad in particular drank, starting in the morning throughout the day. And so around 2000, I got a call that he had fallen and had a brain hemorrhage, and they didn't expect him to leave the hospital. Then when he did leave the hospital, they said, don't expect him to live longer than a year. He had severe liver damage, as a result of accidents and obviously the substance abuse. He had Hep C. But not only did he go on to live beyond a year, he became involved in AA in his area, and went on for 9 years. He was 9 years sober when he finally passed away from the substance abuse. But during that 9 years, and particularly towards the end, he was a big help within his fellowship, within that community. He was very sick. He was often in quite a bit of pain. Nonetheless, he would go and pick up that person who didn't have a ride to the meeting. He would go to that meeting where he knew someone was having an anniversary to support that person, and be there with the fellowship to celebrate. So a huge turnaround, maybe not in time as far as and living on and so forth, but his grandkids really knew him as a sober person. They really never knew the man that I did, that I grew up. So.
That's a remarkable turn of events. During that period when Dad, decided to get sober, were you in active use at that point?
I was. I attempted sobriety, honestly, a number of times throughout that period. I'd get 8 months and then relapse. I'd get maybe a little over a year, and same thing. And so
yeah, go ahead.
So it was, there was some guilt for me because I knew my dad was doing this. He obviously knew I had a problem. He never pushed me to get myself straight. We all know you can't push somebody to do that into sobriety. It just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I despite the things that I did that were counter to what my dad was doing, was and I am tremendously proud of what he did, and I'm grateful that it's never too late. So I'm grateful that I did learn from him, and his experiences, and I apply that in my sobriety. I really do.
Well, let's talk about. I mean, I know there's no real good answer to this, but you decided at some point that what you were doing wasn't working anymore. You'd seen your both your parents pass away as a result of substance abuse, and then you make this decision to get to a treatment facility. Do you remember that moment when you went, I got to do something else?
Somewhat. At that point, I was drinking vodka on a daily basis. Starting in the morning, I had to have it when I got up, and I was doing a fairly good job of hiding it from people, people close to me. But there came a point, and this has happened any time in the past when I've gone, to get help. My alcoholism, my disease causes me to want to die, to not be around anymore. When I drink, I get to a place in my head where I know what I'm doing is wrong. I've seen the results of what happens from alcoholism, very, up front and close, as I already explained. But for me, what happened that last time, I was very fortunate to have a friend who went to retreat reach out, or some of my family reached out to him. I had been to rehab when I was 19. I didn't have a whole lot of faith in it because I thought once you get out, you've got to do what you got to do. But what I heard from my friend and family members was that this place was, to get yourself sober, but also to work on the mental health issues. And being suicidal, it was pretty easy for me to understand that I had
Hmm.
mental health issues in addition to, alcoholism addiction. Um, and so, and honestly, I heard that the campus was beautiful and there were lots of trees and set in nature. I'm a woodworker and I have a love for trees and that and nature in general. So that was another thing that drew me to it. But it honestly, it wasn't that difficult of a decision. I needed to do something or I was going to die. I was going to
Yeah,
take my life.
yeah. That'll tend to focus your attention when you understand that the alternative is a dead end. Would had you made suicide attempts in the prior to this?
Uh, I I don't. Well, I guess you could call it an attempt. After my dad passed away, I had been on at that point. I'm an amputee. I lost my leg in a construction accident in 1997 and had it amputated in '99. Um, which that was when OxyContin was becoming the thing.
Hmm.
That it was being pushed by the manufacturers, and so I was sort of a guinea pig for that. Over the years, I stopped for a while, then get back into it. But around the time my dad died, I was very much strung out on oxycodone. I was um, buying it, stealing it, getting it however I could, and all the while drinking. Also, during that period, a doctor put me on an antidepressant. That doctor, however, was he got shut down for overprescribing. It was
Oh,
basically a pill mill.
yeah.
So all the stuff that I was taking, all of a sudden I couldn't get it anymore. So I quit that stuff cold turkey, including an antidepressant, and went into a period of psychosis. Um, I At one point I was on a hotel. I was running from the cops at the time because I had a DWI, and then after that, a hit and run on a suspended license. So I was in this hotel. Definitely, I was out of my head. I went up on the roof and sat on sort of the parapet on the edge with my back facing, away from the roof, um, with a loaded 357 in my mouth. And it's the weirdest thing. I guess you could say, moment of clarity that brought me out of that was, and this is just crazy thinking. This is where I was. It started raining a little bit, and I was worried about the gun getting rusted. So,
Is that right?
yeah, it sounds obviously very strange, but that's what happened. That's how far out of my head I was. Um,
Did you have a family during all at this point in time? Did you have were you married? Do you have kids?
I did. My wife at the time, we got married in 1997. 3 months later, my accident happened where I lost my leg. So it was kind of rough from the start.
Yeah.
But then I have a son and a daughter, 20 and 20. My daughter's 20, my son's 24. So to some extent, they grew up around some of the stuff that there was drinking pretty much all the time. It was, just kind of what we did. Um, but I'm very grateful that despite all of the things that I did that harmed or could have caused serious harm to my kids and to my family, despite all that, they're great people.
Oh, great.
Yeah, both of
That's
them in college and doing well. So.
that's great. Let's talk a little bit about and everybody's situation in treatment is different, and certainly everybody's path to maintaining sobriety is different. You know how it works. If it works, it's good. If this is helping you, then it's good by definition. But you mentioned that you had co-occurring mental health situations going on. When you start to on this road to sobriety, and you're not using, you're still, I guess, suffering from clinical depression, right?
Yeah. So what happened was, when I went to retreat, they confirmed some of the diagnoses that I already had. There was, PTSD, major depression, anxiety, which obviously those conditions will exacerbate or cause it. But retreat was where I really started to recognize and accept that I had, pretty significant mental illness. Um, and so once I left retreat, the things that I learned there and the turnaround that I experienced there, and, turnaround in my behavior and so forth, allowed me to continue my care, my mental health maintenance. And not too long after seeing several psychiatrists, I was determined to be, or they determined that I had bipolar, and began treatment on that, and it's helped a lot. It was,
Yeah.
coming back from retreat and being sober and working on my sobriety, and I had all this crazy stuff going on in my head. Couldn't focus. I'd become very angry and that kind of thing. So that's, again, when it became pretty clear that I had some mental health
Yeah.
stuff that I
Right.
needed to take care of.
It's interesting. The lay, first of all, abusers have to come to that insight themselves, but the general population that's just observing this stuff, I don't think quite yet understands that the behavior, the abuse of the whatever the substance is a manifestation of something else that's going on. That if it isn't addressed, you're going to wind up in trouble. Now you've got 3 years coming in a month, so I mean that's a considerable length of time. Some of the skills that you've picked up now that help you maintain your sobriety, could you elaborate on them? I mean, a couple of the things I've read was it's important for someone in recovery to develop good communication skills. In other words, being able to tell people what's going on. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. From family and friends to the the medical folks, the psychiatrists, the therapists, um, family, friends, my sponsor. If I'm not honest you know, with any of them, it's not going to work out. So have what's happened for me, and for which I'm so grateful, is the support system that, um, you know I've obviously contributed to it, but other people saw me, and that I was trying to make things better and be sober, and I got support from them. So it's to me, that's a critical part of it. I personally, I know I never could, I can't stay sober or sane without help from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk just a couple other items about skills. Um, Problem solving is a skill that has to be developed if you're going to maintain sobriety. I mean, in the past, most substance abusers solve their problem by getting high or drunk. Do you find that you're obviously better at solving problems now than when you were using, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of beyond just not drinking or not taking drugs, um, is that, it's more than that. It's a spiritual thing. It's and it's, I guess, the biggest thing of it that people should be aware of is you have to maintain that. And so part of that maintenance for me was to not react quickly to things, particularly bad things that were going on. It's like, all right, take a step back, think about it, maybe meditate, clear your head, and think about it again. And then in my case, I talk to my sponsor sometimes, or I talk to, family or friends. I'm fortunate to have another family member. She actually went to retreat a month after I did. So, we talk sometimes, and, but yeah, it's a comprehensive approach. It really
Yeah.
is. But for me,
Do
it has to be.
Did you find it particularly difficult to repair the damage done to your relationships with friends and family?
Um, yeah, I mean, I lived a lifetime just running away, kind of. And that's not something that you fix in a week or a day
Right.
or even these nearly 3 years that I've been sober. It's going to take a long time to really
Sure.
to work through that stuff.
What, finally here, I mean, because we want to give people some idea of what this is like on a day-to-day basis. Relapse scares the hell out of people who don't know really what relapse is about. It's not part of recovery, but it certainly occurs. How do you avoid it? Do you worry about relapsing? Do you get urges and have to work against them? How do you avoid relapsing?
Um, well, again, the having that support system there, because there's people kind of looking out for you, and really just working through the fellowship, going through the steps, and the mental health part of it as well. Fortunately, I no longer have the cravings for alcohol. I stopped taking the opioids shortly after that period of psychosis I had, and I'm kind of terrified of them. As a matter of fact, I had surgery recently and had to take painkillers afterwards, and that was my biggest apprehension leading up to it. Like I
Uh-huh.
had no problem going under the knife, but it was after that and taking that medicine. But being aware and knowing that you can't do that stuff is kind of, for me anyway, that was the first part of it. And then it's like, how do you not do that stuff? And like I said, it's for me, it's being a part of the 12-step program. It's maintaining my mental health. As you said, it's communicating directly and honestly with those people. And then I know that they'll be there for me, and vice versa, hopefully.
Yeah, you know what, Gary, it's a remarkable story. A lot of people starting out where you did, with the things that happened in your family and your physical condition, might not have gotten to where you are. 3 years sober, family relationship with your kids, it's good, and the desire, obviously, not to go back down that road. This proves, this really does prove in my mind why it's a good idea to have folks we call Voices in Recovery on the program. Thanks so much. I appreciate this. If there's somebody out there going, well, what should I do? What advice would you give them?
Reach out for help. Don't keep that stuff inside of you. Don't try to do it yourself. Don't beat up on yourself. Don't tell yourself that you're a bad person and you're never going to be straight. Reach out, get some help. For me, it was retreat was the start of that, and then the maintenance. Once you reach out for help and somebody's helping you, you've got to stick with it. It's like so many things in life. It takes work.
Yep.
You've got to be dedicated to it.
Yep. Gary Moore, thanks so much. We appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing the story. I think it's been a huge benefit for people and continued success, of course. Everybody else, thank you for joining us on the corner. A couple of reminders for you. We appreciate hearing back from you. We love the feedback. Like us if you like us on Facebook. There's ways to also write a review if you like, and it's real easy to push the subscription button. By the way, it's the only subscription that doesn't cost you anything, but you'll be able to stay on top of what we've been doing here on the program. So thanks again to Gary Moore, our guest, and thank you for your time. And we'll see you on the Behavioral Corner real soon. Gary, take care.
All right, thank you.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.